Hello guys, this is Pfizer and welcome to my channel. Today's vlog is all about presentation guidelines for final defense of your thesis. So I'm going to give you some guidelines or tips on everything you need to know about before, during, and after the presentation. So before I start, let me just give you an introduction of what is a presentation. So a presentation, or some may call it as a defense, provides an opportunity for you to communicate your research findings orally. So this is the time where you're going to present your output to your panel members. Okay. The difference between a good and a bad presentation, of course, is determined by the effectiveness of the presenter in getting the message across. So meaning to say, if you're going to present your output to your panel members, it's all about conveying your message to your audience, using, of course, presentation materials to present your paper. Okay, so let's talk about first the message. So the message in your presentation should contain your research findings. So all the materials that you need to know, that you need to present, should be extracted from your thesis or your report. Okay, you should not present any material that is not part of your report or thesis. Of course, another thing to consider in a presentation is the presentation time. So it is important to keep within the allocated time, right? So it is better to rehearse or practice your presentation considering the time allocated or the time given to you by your advisor or by the panel committee. Okay, so if you are given 30 minutes to present, see to it that you present only during those period. Okay, so this rule forces you to be selective to the presentation materials to include, as well as avoid having too many slides. Okay, now preparing for an oral presentation. For an effective presentation, prepare thoroughly the following steps. Number one, you plan the materials that you're going to include in your presentation. Okay, you have to discuss, and in your discussion, you have to include by asking yourself these 4 questions. First, why did I do this work? You have to give emphasis on this. Number 2, how did I do it? Meaning, what are the tools, techniques, approaches that you use during the conduct of your research? Number 3, what were my findings or the results? So this is one good important part of your paper presentation. And then, number 4, and the last one, is what I have concluded from it. And after covering all the research processes, what does this all mean? So that is part of the conclusion. Next, we go to number 2 steps. We go to organize. So once you have the materials, you have to arrange the materials in order that you shall be presenting. It's just like about building a storyboard for your presentation. So you must arrange the order of your presentation, which comes first, which comes next, and which comes last. Number 3 is support with visuals. Reduce the number of slides to a minimum and keep their design simple. Okay? Number 4 is practice. So the next thing that you have to consider is to avoid or to manage your anxiety is you are going to write a script of your presentation. So using a complete script will help you if you're extremely nervous about presenting. Practice reading it in a natural voice, and during your presentation, refer to your script discreetly when you are speaking. And then, you have to deal symptoms such as yung dry mouth. How do you deal with the dry mouth? You have to sip a little water. So during your presentation, you have to have your water beside you. So in case you have experienced a dry mouth, you may ask for a break and then you sip a little water. And then for trembling hands, you have to clasp them lightly together. So you have to do this to manage symptoms of nervousness before the presentation. And then for quivering voice, you have to pause, take a deep breath, and smile to relax. What are the don'ts of oral presentation? Number one, you have to do not rely completely on a written script. Okay? So, if you are very nervous, it helps you to bring along script of your presentation as a form of security, but do not rely more on your script. So, a presentation comprises both content and delivery. In most cases, during the final defense, you will be graded according to two criteria. Number one, the content of your paper and your delivery. On the delivery, how do you master your presentation, and how do you answer questions given by your panel members? So these are the do's in delivering your presentation. So number one, you have to open and close the presentation in a professional manner. So treat the beginning and the end of your presentation seriously. Open your presentation by greeting your audience, introducing yourself, introducing your group members if you are working in a group, showing your title slide, and looking directly at the audience. So you may say, good morning or good afternoon, my name is, and I'm going to present a project on blah blah blah. You have to close your presentation by projecting your conclusion slide. Use simple and concise words and avoid unnecessary, unfamiliar, or complicated words during your presentation. You also need to keep sentences short and concise and deliver it verbatim, presenting directly what is written in your paper, word per word. Okay, so do not do that. Likewise, do not read your PowerPoint slide. So remember that the PowerPoint slide contained only the outline of your presentation, meaning to say, you have to elaborate the content of your slides. You have to rehearse your presentation using an audio or video recorder. And you have to listen to the recording and note the tone, the pitch, and the speed of your voice. And you have to work on sounding natural and relaxed. You have to check and listen to your own voice if your pitch and your tone is just enough for your panel members to hear. You have to pronounce your words correctly and clearly. Okay? Articulate your words clearly. Do not drop syllables. So let's say, for example, saying technology instead of saying technology. Do not swallow your words or gargle them. Okay? Minimize using fillers such as or verbal distractors which are repetition of the same word, such as okay, right, actually, basically, you know. So avoid using or minimize the use of fillers. You have to vary the tone of your voice to keep your audience attention. It is difficult to pay attention when the presenter is speaking in a monotonous voice. Express enthusiasm for your presentation. Okay, so enthusiasm is an essential element in any successful speaker's delivery. So you need to feel that you have something important to say and that what you have to say is significant to your audience. Emphasize keywords in your presentation to heighten the impact of your message. All right? And then you have to pause at the end of sentences. These are the don'ts in presentation. Do not speak too quickly. And then you do not speak in monotone or mumble. Rehearse your presentation using a video recorder. And then you work on appearing confident and relaxed. Okay? You have to dress appropriately for the presentation. So this is a presentation. Your personal appearance affects your credibility. Casual clothing such as jeans or t-shirts for a formal presentation. Make eye contact with the members of the audience. Even if it's only virtual, you have to face the camera. You need to appear confident and interested. Now, what are the don'ts in a visual component or the body language presentation? Do not slouch or lean to one side. You have to stand straight and distribute your weight evenly on both legs. So you don't have to sway or rock in place. You have to sit. You have to see to it that your face is inside the frame of your camera. so that your panel members could see you during your presentation, and you don't need to make some unnecessary movements during your presentation. You have to consider the following. So do not spend too long on the introductory material. You give more emphasis on your results and discussion. Now, the following suggestions will hopefully would help you to respond to questions effectively. Number one, you have to work out possible questions beforehand. So as a group, you have to meet your group members appropriately for the presentation. So this is a presentation. Your personal appearance affects your credibility. So avoid using casual clothing such as jeans or t-shirts for a formal presentation. Make eye contact with the members of the audience. Even if it's only virtual, you have to face the camera, and you need to appear confident and interested. Now, what are the don'ts in a visual component or the body language presentation? Do not slouch or lean to one side. You have to stand straight and distribute your weight evenly on both legs. Okay? So you don't have to sway or rock in place. You have to see to it that your face is inside the frame of your camera, so that your panel members could see you during your presentation, and you don't need to make some unnecessary movements during your presentation. For managing your time, you have to consider the following. So do not spend too long on the introductory material. You give more emphasis on your results and discussion. Now, here are some guides in answering questions. So many students are nervous at the thought of answering questions at the end of a presentation because they fear not knowing the answer to the questions. So the following suggestions maybe will help you respond to questions effectively. So number one is you work out possible questions beforehand. So you discuss, brainstorm among your group members what could be the possible questions that your panel members should ask. So as a tip, usually in a presentation, these are the questions that usually panel members would ask you. So number one, what is your study all about? Number two, why did you use that methodology? So you have to justify that. Present, or what does your results mean after the conduct of the study, and what can you conclude after gathering all these informations and working out from the beginning of the research process up to the last. So this part of answering questions would anticipate possible questions by your panel members. Okay. Number two, make sure you understand the questions correctly. So do not answer a question until you are sure that you have understood it. Okay. And you want to ask clarification for the question, you may simply say, "I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not sure I understand that. Could you please repeat it?" You can do that. Number three, repeat the question if you think the audience may not have heard it. Okay. So usually answering questions, before you answer that, you have to repeat the question and then proceed with your answer. You may also provide a supplementary set of slides in answering your question. So sometimes answers to questions of the panel or that you have just presented. So you can always go back to the slides and then show them as part of your justification for your answer. The things that you need to consider in answering questions of the panel members. Now, these are the don'ts. Number one, do not pretend if you do not know the answer to a question. Okay? So it is better to be honest by either saying that you do not know in a positive voice rather than pretending that you know by answering it with answers which are nonsense. Okay? So besides indicating honesty, such responses also show openness to communicating about your work and your confidence in it. So do not be afraid to say sorry. Number 2, do not interrupt your panel member when they have not yet completed asking their question. So sometimes the questions given by the panel members, even if the questions has not been completed yet. So meaning to say, you have to wait for the complete questions to be asked, and this will allow you process the question properly, and then you have time to answer or to make an appropriate response. So that's all, guys, for the presentation guidelines, everything you need to know before, during, and after the presentation. And I hope you learned something from this video. If you have any questions regarding the presentation, you may comment down below and I will answer them. Good luck on your presentation. Goodbye.